Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the September 2022 My Creative Scrapbook Limited Edition Kit. This month I've been trying to get a number of videos that I had filmed but I hadn't edited or voiced over completed and up on my channel, and this is one of those videos. So in September we got a really beautiful 49 and Market collection. It was called the Art Options Viking collection. I'm not sure if that I is long or short, but in any case, the collection featured some beautiful papers and embellishments with lots of turquoise, purple, green, other blues, just a really, really gorgeous collection. For this layout, I'm using this gorgeous window die cut, and I'm going to back it with some of the packaging. It's something that I always love about the 49 and Market products. The packaging can often be used on scrapbook layouts, and I just love the way that the beautiful colors looked behind this window. So I cut it to size, then I used some ATG adhesive and I attached that backing behind the window. I have a number of die cut and laser cut pieces on my mat, and earlier I used some Distress Oxide in Villainous Potion and Peacock Feathers, and I inked the edges of each of those pieces. And of course, it would have been much more convenient if I had remembered to ink the inside of the window before I attached the paper behind it, but I forgot, so I just very carefully lifted up each section of the window and put a little bit of purple ink on the inside. For this layout, I'm going to cut my photo in a circle. Right now, I'm cutting a mat for the photo. Over the years, I have decided that I really like the way photos look when they have a white border, so I tend to put a white border behind most of my photos, whether they're squares or rectangles or circles. And then behind the white mat, I'm putting this really pretty blue color. I used one of the journaling cards to cut that out. And now I'm going to attach those three layers together. This photo was taken of both of my daughters, my favorite subjects for my scrapbooking layouts. We were at the Magic Gardens in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I have scrapbooked many, many pictures from this day before, but we just got a lot of really great pictures, so I still have quite a few left to scrap, so you might see me scrapping it again. Isn't this a really gorgeous piece of paper? I'm just in love with this sheet of paper. Because it's a somewhat dark color, I thought I would try to add some white embossing on the background, so I used this old stamp and then I put some embossing powder over it, but I realized it wasn't white, it was more of a clear color, and I really wanted the background to have white in it, so I decided to try again, and I just re-stamped right over the clear embossing powder, and I used, once again, that same stamp, this older stamp that I have in my stash, and the Versamark pad, and then I found that I had some Martha Stewart embossing powder that was true white. I like that much better. That was more what I had in mind when I was thinking about making this background. So I spread the white embossing powder all over the background, and then I poured the excess into its container. It's a very small container. And then I use a paintbrush to help me get rid of some of those stray bits of embossing powder. And then I use my heat tool and I heat embossed all of those areas. And then because I knew that some of it would get covered up, I decided to add just a little bit more embossing. So I stamped it a few more places and then I repeated the process. Sometimes embossing can be a little bit messy. Sometimes I'm a little bit messy, but I really love the results of the embossing, and I really love the process of making the embossing powder set. It just is such a cool transformation. I never get sick of watching it. So now I'm adding some white splatters to the background. I use some watered down white acrylic paint. Now I'm mounting that window on a piece of thick white cardstock. I'm going to pop it up on some foam. So you may know that when I pop things up on foam, I do like to reinforce them a little bit with some sturdy paper. It helps keep the popped up elements from sagging in the page protectors. And I like to use this fun foam that is adhesive on one side. So you can see I cut a big sheet of the foam. I'm putting it behind the window, and then I add a few more tiny pieces of foam at the top of the window to kind of fill in some spaces. Now I'm going to start arranging all of those elements on the background. I have a flower cluster on the upper left-hand corner. Then I have my large window. I popped up the right-hand side of my photo on some foam so that it would sit correctly because the left-hand side is laying on top of the window. I add a little bit more Distress Oxide to the flower embellishment that I just tucked in behind the photo, and then I have another embellishment that I'm tucking on the other side of the photo, and you could see that this makes a diagonal line going from the upper left-hand corner to the bottom right-hand corner. And I feel like I'm pretty happy with that arrangement, so I start attaching everything down. I use ATG adhesive to attach all of these pieces down to the page, but I always like to point out that it's important to go back and use some wet glue when attaching foam to pattern paper. The ATG adhesive only holds the foam to the pattern paper temporarily, so some wet glue, I usually use gel glue, is necessary for it to become permanent. I chose 3 of the beautiful dimensional flowers from the kit. I just love those colors. And I again used ATG adhesive to just temporarily hold them in place. I just wanted to make sure that I liked them where they were. And the ATG adhesive will definitely not hold these for very long, but I thought that I would use it just to make sure that I like the composition before attaching everything down. I added a die cut bow on top of the photo. I also put a piece of white cardstock behind the window and the cluster that's to the left of it, just to hold those 2 elements together. I wanted that whole cluster to be one unit that I could move around. And you could see here how those pieces of white cardstock really help to attach everything together. I took the flowers off temporarily because I knew they would fall off when I turned the cluster upside down, so I'm just putting them back in place. Earlier, I put a purple butterfly to the left-hand side of the window. I popped up its wings using a little bit of foam. I wanted to add a little bit more to the clusters, so I had a number of blue and a few purple leaves that I had fussy cut out from some of the pattern papers. I'm inking the edges of them, and I'm tucking them all around the outside of that cluster. I really like those blue flowers. They match the background, but you can still see them, and I think they still add a nice detail to the clusters. Now I'm adding some purple berries, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm adding them around the outside of that large cluster. I just love the combination of the teal and the purple. I saved one of the blue branches and one of the bunches of purple berries to use in the title cluster. I always like to have some elements from the rest of the layout incorporated into the title. I'm going to call this layout Memorable Days. The word memorable is a title from the kit. I wanted to add the word days, so I used some dies that were in my stash, and I cut out the word days 4 times, 3 times out of white cardstock and once out of pattern paper. I used ATG adhesive. I sometimes use gel glue, but on this day I decided to use the ATG gun. I attached 2 layers of white letters together. I used some Distress Oxide in Villainous Purple, and I inked each of those pattern paper letters, and then I attached the pattern paper letters on top of the 2 layers of white letters. And I really inked up the edges of those white letters very well so that you would see purple rather than white if you were looking at the layout from a side view. After I had those 3 layers, 2 white and 1 pattern paper layered together, I used the 3rd layer or the 3rd set of white letters, and I offset them slightly from the other letters, and this will help to give a white kind of shadow behind the letters. I think that the white offset really helps those letters to stand out and contrast with the background. Once I had the letters arranged where I wanted them, I used some ATG adhesive and I attached them down. Since the letters of the word days were rather dimensional with all those layers, I decided that I would pop up the word memorable on some foam. I tucked the purple berries in to the right of the blue leaves, and then I decided to add a few sentiments to the lower left-hand corner. One says, "The best ever." One says, "All good things take time." And the other one says, "This moment." I liked the sentiment, "All good things take time," because the place that we were visiting, the Magic Gardens, is clearly a place that took a very long time to create. It's an entire house that is just covered from corner to corner with mosaics, and it must have taken a huge amount of time for the artist to complete that. I often mention how I just love to use butterflies on my layouts. This layout is no exception. There were lots of little tiny blue butterflies. I cut some very tiny pieces of foam and placed them on each of their small wings, and then I added some ATG adhesive and I attached them in several places around the layout. Most of them stay where I put them, but some of them will travel around the layout a little bit by the end. And my thought was to have the butterflies go along with that diagonal composition, so I put some on the top and all the way along to the bottom of that diagonal. And then I found I had some purple butterflies that were smaller versions of the larger purple butterfly that I already had on the layout. And like I said, I like to bring elements of the rest of the layout to the title cluster, so I added some butterflies to the title. Now I'm adding some heavy gel medium. This is Liquitex matte medium. This is a great adhesive for things like flowers. So now that I'm sure that those flowers are where I want them, I'm using that adhesive to hold them down. This adhesive is very strong, takes a little bit of time to dry, but I like to be very sure that I have things where I want them before I use that adhesive, because it is very hard to remove them once the gel medium dries. I felt like I needed a little bit more embossing in the area to the left of the large window, so I added a little bit more of the white embossing powder on top of the stamped script writing. Now I'm using some Finnabair heavy white gesso and an old paintbrush, and I'm just dabbing on a little bit of this white gesso on the very tips of the petals, and it just gives a cool effect that I like to the flowers. I like to use the heavy gesso for this technique because you don't need multiple coats. You just put one coat on and that's enough. Now I'm adding some of my favorite glitter paste. I have to order some more of this. It's Bo Bunny glitter paste. The color is called Sugar, and I just love the way it gives a sparkle to elements on the page. I decided on this page I was just going to add some to the butterflies just to give them a little bit of extra sparkle. This glitter paste dries really quickly, and sometimes I have to add a second coat. Sometimes I don't add the glitter paste evenly on whatever I'm applying it to, but it's very easy to go back and add a second coat when the first coat dries so quickly. So now I'm adding some self-adhesive pearls to the butterflies. For the large purple butterfly, I used 4, and for the other butterflies, I just used 2 pearls. These tweezers are so helpful for applying these pearls to the page. I really love them and use them quite a bit these days. After I added the pearls to the butterflies, I was thinking that pearls might look really nice on the flowers too. So I picked out some very small white, blue, and green pearls, and I think that I was lucky in that the colors that I had matched these flowers pretty well, and I decided that I was going to put all 3 colors on all 3 of the flowers. Sometimes I'll just put blue pearls on blue flowers and white pearls on white flowers, but for this layout, I decided to just mix all the colors together. I continued to use my tweezers, and then I used glossy accents because I think that's the best adhesive for attaching things like pearls and sequins down to pages. I thought it would balance out the layout if I had some pearls on the lower left-hand side on the sentiments. I added some really, really tiny pearls to the bottom sentiment that says "This Moment," and then the next larger size up for that teal sentiment that says "The Best Ever." I added a pearl to the bow over the photo, and this layout is complete, and here are the close-ups. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to have a number of additional videos this month. I'm hoping to finish up all of the videos that I have to complete, but we will see. I'm really going to try hard to do that. Don't forget to check out the My Creative Scrapbook website. The link is in the description box. You could check out all their beautiful current kits there. And also check out their Instagram. You could get lots of inspiration from all of the beautiful layouts. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.